Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with my friend Cristina Moreira. I hope I said that right. It's Portuguese. She lives in Portugal. And we met in 2017. I think that's when we met the first time in person for the total solar eclipse that went across the US. And she was here, and we were in with a group of people, and we just had it was so like life-changing to see a total solar eclipse. Like mind blowing. I had no idea because I'd seen a lot of lunar eclipses, but I'd never seen a total solar eclipse before. And it's like it turns your world into something else, I think is kind of the experience that I had. Anyway, so we met there. And then later that year, she was hosting a group of us to be in Portugal. And I think that's when you started doing sacred site journeys in Portugal was around that time in 2017. So she's still doing that. Yay. And then we unexpectedly met at the Standing Stones in Callanish in Scotland at the summer solstice full moon that was happening, and we got a chance to catch up and reconnect. And so it's been so fun. It was so delightful to see there, like one of those unexpected magical things that happens when you least expect it, and then something happens like that. And we've been talking as a result. It's like, oh, we needed to reconnect, and so we've been doing that. And so Christina was sharing with me about the this awareness that she's having around this Aries Pisces dance. And so I'm going to turn this over to you now, Christina, so you can share a little bit more about you and what you're doing, and also this whole amazing Alpha Omega insight that's been coming through for you, because it's pretty cool, as are you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaylin, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I've been following the celestial timing since 2012, and yes, yeah. And then we met in person in 2017 for the eclipse, which was also my first total solar eclipse, also life-changing. So it's been really a pleasure to be sharing all through these years and such magical moments together and more to come. So thank you for having me. Yeah, as you said, I am from Portugal. I in college I graduated in tourism and cultural heritage. And I'm passionate about the megalithic culture that we have here and also astrology. So I merge all together, and I've been hosting tours to ancient sacred sites in Portugal since 2017, and now also to Egypt coming February. And yes, regarding this Aries Pisces special point in space and time continuum, there was this really incredible synchronicity. Well, after the first one where we met in Kalanish, that was really already an incredible portal of synchronicity to find you there after all these years. And then we got connected. And in September, I remember we were in a call and we were talking about the astrology for 2025 and also the new Venus cycle in Aries Pisces and the nodal axis shifting into the Virgo Pisces also. And that point is going to be fully activated, and Neptune and Saturn also crossing that point. And it came to me this really strong download that really reverberated through all my body that 2025 is going to be the year of the Alpha Omega. It's the beginning and the end. It's the serpent of time eating its tail. It's also the balance of the feminine and the masculine. I mean, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, the logical mind with intuition, the mind with the heart. So we become in coherence. So that really resonated through all my being when we were having this talk that 2025 is going to be the year of the Alpha Omega. So that same day, exactly that same day in the evening, I was listening to a podcast with Robert Edward Grant, which is a polymath from the States, and he does a lot of work with sacred geometry, and he also takes groups to Egypt. And he was sharing, and it was my first time ever listening to him. And he just starts to share that a couple of years ago, he was in Egypt, inside the Great Pyramid, which he had been many times before, and he found the Alpha and Omega symbols etched on the rim of the sarcophagus inside the king's chamber. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Alpha Omega. It was just playing on my mind, and there it was, just in front of me. And listening to that really reverberated through me. And I had been there last March, and I actually had the opportunity to lie on the sarcophagus. And it really felt like I was being projected like into a wormhole when I lie there. It was really a mind-altering moment for me. And and that day with when that revelation came through with the Alpha Omega and he was sharing that, and I had this soul memory activated that my soul knew that the Alpha and Omega symbols were there. But at the same time, I didn't know because that was a novelty for me. So that was like a major timeline jump that I felt I went through. And it's been well known worldwide that, I mean, for many years, thousands of years, millions of people visiting the Great Pyramid, that there were no hieroglyphs or writings, or there was nothing. There were just like plain walls. And suddenly he finds the Alpha Omega there, the beginning and the end, and his wife around the same time found that all the constellations of the zodiac plus the constellations of the decans of astrology, which sums 48 constellations, they're all engraved on the walls of the king's chamber. So that was also a major, major revelation because no one knew about this. And the point where we entered the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, it's the point between Pisces and Aries. So it's the Alpha Omega point. So here we have this incredible synchronicity of the Ouroboros, the serpent of time eating its tail, the beginning of the end, coming in the end, coming up in this overlapping cycle of time in 2025. Also, we have the end of Kali Yuga, according to Bibu Dev Misra, coming up in March 2025. And I pass to you, Kaylin, on the new Venus cycle that's also coming up around that time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, the synchronicities and so what I like to say is you're on the right track when you get a sign in the world of form or a synchronicity that happens and that you watched for the first time ever to watch this person talking about that and they were talking about that after you'd had this revelation download after our conversation or during our conversation actually, and then then this happens after the conversation to confirm that. And I just also will say that that I've been listening to a guy named Rory Duff who's a biogeologist, and he's talking about how sacred sites, they're built where they are for a reason because they're on ley lines and the energy there is magnificent. And so when we go to these places, it activates something. And when you were talking about lying in the sarcophagus, I had I got to do that back in 1999. Whole long story I won't tell now, and I will put a video into talking about an experience that I had where I went out the top of the sarcophagus or out from the sarcophagus. I rose up out top through the top of the pyramid to a yellow light, a sunny plane, and I thought it was supposed to be a golden light, but it wasn't. So I was kind of questioning that. But then I saw an ibis-headed figure, which I couldn't think of who he was. I knew, but I couldn't think of it at the time. I was in such an altered state. And I said, "So who are you?" "I'm Thoth." I was like, "Oh." Anyway, it was like one of those experiences, and it was just right after my mother had died in 1998, like 2 weeks after she died, that I had this experience. And then I went to Egypt in 1999 and got to actually lie in the sarcophagus. But what I learned, and what some, what I think people know, is the sarcophagus was not for dead people. It was an initiation chamber. And the priestesses, especially the winged priestess, or those who could become winged priestesses, would be put in the sarcophagus for a few days, like 4 days. And the lid put on, they couldn't get out. And so they would have this journey, and they would go to a sunny plain and they would encounter four. They would encounter Thoth and Anubis and Isis and Nephthys, I think were the four that they encountered. According to, because the next morning I got up and I was like, I need to find out who that Ibis, I need to know more about Thoth. I need to find out more about him. So I have a book called the something Isis, the Mysteries of Isis, or something like that. Anyway, I got it off my shelf and I opened it up and I found this whole story about the winged priestess initiation. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly the vision that I just had. It's like I was remembering some kind of past life initiation or experience, or whatever. So it's powerful. I mean, I'm so excited you're doing a trip to Egypt. People, if you're hearing this and this is something that excites you, you should go, because when I was walking around Egypt back then, and I want to go again one of these days. I'm definitely going to go again. So I'm just bummed I can't go with you, Cristina, because I have other things I'm already committed to at the time you're going. But um, the 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 sense that I kept having was that it was awakening light codes within people's DNA, that they were walking around these sacred sites and their energy lines, and so much happening there. And that it was like and when I was there was a lot of people there. It was like they would just come out of a time when there hadn't been very many people going. And then suddenly a lot of people were going again. And it was very busy with a lot of people at that time. And it was such a life-changing, magnificent experience. And then to find out, oh, the alpha and omega, of course, because if you think about it, it's like it's that between point. And I've actually been reading this book on the shining ones, and they talk about the hypnagogic state. It's the place between the conscious and the subconscious. There's that point where everything exists in the now. And that when we can reach that point, which is that point between the alpha and omega, which is what we're going to experience, which is what is being created for us, why all these planetary aspects is just so mind blowing. Like, oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, 2025. Very powerful. March 2025, especially. And of course, the sun will cross from Pisces into Aries at the equinox, as it does every year. But all these other factors are happening around it that amplifies and magnifies this whole alpha omega, Pisces representing the omega, Aries representing the alpha aspect of it, the ending of the signs and the beginning of the signs. And sometimes I like to start with the Capricorn sign, as the winter solstice, the longest, the beginning of a new solar year, and so on. But the spring equinox, and this is for Northern Hemisphere people. Southern Hemisphere people have the opposite experience. But the spring equinox, it's like if we look at the day, midnight would be associated with the December solstice, and sunrise would be associated with the spring equinox. So it's going from dark to light. So we're moving into this time of greater light at the spring equinox. And most people are asleep at during midnight. At least I am. Some people like to stay up and then or bring in a new year or whatever. But for the most part, people tend to be asleep at that time. And I'm appreciating. I just did a video with Gary Caton, and he was talking about that, and I have thought of that and expressed it a lot in the past, but not recently. And so he reminded me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why they thought the spring equinox was the New Year's point, because it was like associated with sunrise, the time of sunrise. So we have this um, passage of all of these things happening, and then Venus is going, she's doing her dance. She goes into Pisces, then she goes into Aries, then she goes retrograde in Aries and goes back into Pisces, then back into Aries. So she's doing this Aries Pisces dance and starting her new cycle. And it's been 251 years since we've had this aspect of the Venus cycle happening. And I'll definitely going to be sharing more details about that, but it's just that we can add to the fact that Neptune has a 165-year cycle going into Aries, will retrograde back into Pisces, go back into Aries, only can happen every 165 years. And Saturn is an almost 30-year cycle, and it's going into Aries and back into Pisces and back into Aries. And it can only happen every 30 years. And it's happening with Neptune, which is how often does that happen? It's probably several hundred years or maybe even 1,000 years. I don't really know. I haven't looked it up, but it's not something that happens very often. So this is like a once in a many lifetimes kind of thing. Plus the nodes. So as you were mentioning, we reached the zero Aries point on January 11th, and then it goes to 29 Pisces, and then Venus and the Moon and Neptune and the North Node will all meet in early February. I forget the exact date. I think it's the 3rd or 4th of February, and at the very end of the current Venus cycle, as she's getting her crown chakra back. And her reconnection to the divine, to spirit, to something uh, bigger than, to that aspect of the divine essence that's within us. But we lose that connection. So she's getting that back at that conjunction, at that time. So remarkable. So I feel like I've said a plenty here, but the dance between the Aries and Pisces, or Pisces and Aries, depending on how you look at it, is so remarkable. And I feel like that it's all happening around the spring equinox. I mean, a little bit before and a little bit after, but it's all around in that time period. And the geobiologist Rory Duff is saying that the ley lines of the Earth are expanding their energy right now, and that there's at the equinoxes and the solstices, it's bringing a harmonic convergence of energies from the whole solar system. The whole solar system is going through a big shift because our solar system and the way it's aligning with the galaxy, the plane of the galaxy, it's everything's going through massive changes. They've been able to see that scientifically when they look out at the different planets and see what's going on with them. So it's it's truly a remarkable time, and that we get to be here and that we can go to sacred sites and do the ceremonies and do the intentions and so on. And then we don't even have to go again. This is something else that Rory Duff talks about. He's like, you go to the sacred site, then it's inside of you, it's activated inside of you, and you can just think about it and you get that energy. Which I agree with. I feel like that's exactly the way it works for me. So it's so great. So yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to you now.
So it's incredible, all the synchronicities and magic that it's coming. It's already like the veil is being lifted with all the outer planets moving into new signs. And then we can the configuration also of the 0 point, zero Aries point, or the Alpha Omega point, where Saturn and Neptune will meet, where Venus will start her new cycle, where the nodal axis the North Node in transit will pass through that point. And then we'll also be creating harmonious aspects with Uranus entering Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. So Uranus and Pluto trining in the air element, and then making both a sextile to the fire element of Aries. It's just like this arrow. Look at this point. This point is being a ring on all of you because it's very important to know what's happening. I believe it's going to be a year full of revelations and such an opportunity for us to reconnect even in more deeper levels with our own divine nature. that the potential is there for us to wake up to even higher states of consciousness that should become the common norm for all of us. And then coming back to Egypt and what's there, I mean, it's not just the Giza Plateau, it's all the temples, all the anomalies, which are the mysteries that science cannot even explain today. They're like a legacy from a golden age of humanity, that these monuments seem to be so much older than what conventional history is saying, not just because of archaeoastronomy and the specific alignments with the constellations and the precessional cycle, but also, for instance, the Sphinx has watermarks from erosion from very heavy rains, and according to geological studies from Robert Schoch, the last time that it rained heavily in that area of the world was around 12,000, 13,000 years ago. So these monuments are so much older. They were made before the Great Deluge, before the Younger Dryas. And as our consciousness expands into the future, it also expands back into the past, because we have the daily motion of the planets and the Earth around the sun, and we're moving forward, but the precessional cycle is also moving backwards. So time moves forward and backwards at the same time. And we need to go back to those ancient roots that are common to so many cultures in the world, and retrieve what's worth it and sustainable, and the very basic keys to existence in this planet, in a way that is optimizing all our resources in deep connection and with nature and the sacredness of nature, so that we can move forward, and this relationship between heaven and earth. It's, I believe, what the winged priestess would do. They would have wings because they would be the sky priestesses, like you are, for sure. And yes, it's really meaningful. And let's just be conscious and mindful of staying in our hearts, and trusting that we are divine beings going through a major threshold into reconnecting with our divinity and the divine plan, for
Ah,
sure.
yes, that's so beautiful. Yes, because we volunteered to be here at this time to help with this transition. So, I remember back, I think it was in 1975, and I was involved in transcendental meditation. I went to hear somebody talk who he didn't do the scientific aspect of TM. He was doing the more spiritual aspect of TM. Charlie Lutz was his name. And he was giving this talk, and he was talking about how there are the fact that you're here at this time is such a blessing. You have no idea. There are hundreds of thousands of souls that are waiting to get in to be here at this time. And at the time, I was pretty young, but I was like, okay, cool, we're here at this time. But I feel it more and more. And that was back in 1975. So it was, coming up on 2025. That was almost 50 years ago that I heard that, and that has stayed with me. That it's a blessing that we're here, even though sometimes it's been really hard. I was like, what? Why did I choose to come here right now? But when we talk about things like this, and when we have these kinds of experiences, I'm like, yes, this is what I came for. This is why I'm here. So exciting, and that we can bring that awareness, that presence, and the love into these times, and when we have these sacred moments, astrological moments that are taking place, and then to be able to go to sacred sites. So when is your trip to Egypt again? Tell me. I know it's in February. I just can't remember the exact dates.
Yes. February 9th to the 18th, 2025.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So it's right in the center of all of this. So it's a great time to be there and to be
Yes.
doing sacred ceremony, and to going into the pyramids and going to the temple sites. And really, literally, I got when I was walking around them way back when, that these sites they're overwhelming to your senses, because the pillars and the statues and everything is so huge. It's just like, whoa. And it reminds you of like we're just like a piece of sand in the greater reality, or maybe we're an electron or something within it all, but that we're all connected and it's just such an amazing experience that I highly encourage people to to
It, it
engage and to go with you if they if they can, if that
Oh,
works for
thank
them.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, so many things come from Egypt that we're not aware. We feel, oh, it comes from ancient Greece, but actually, ancient Greeks, they reached Egypt, and that's where they got all the knowledge, all the high knowledge and alchemy, and even the alphabet. I mean, the alphabet was already in the Great Pyramids, and then they also started to find the Alpha Omega in other places in Egypt. So it's like a veil was lifted and this revelation is already happening because it was not visible before. No one had ever seen these symbols, and then they're there. And even the name of ancient Egypt, which is Kem, uh, it's the root word for alchemy. That's where the word alchemy comes from ancient Egypt. And I've also been researching on connections between places in ancient Egypt, from ancient Egypt and the megalithic culture that we have many megalithic sites in Portugal and obviously also in Spain and along the Mediterranean and Brittany and up to the British Islands. But I've been finding so many correlations. So there seems to be like these common roots that goes back to this ancient civilization that really knew how to work with the ley lines of the earth and would use granite, which contains a lot of quartz, to build these monuments. And they're always aligned also with the cardinal directions and the constellations. So this magical connection between earth and sky. But yes, definitely a lot comes from the magical land of Kem, ancient Egypt. And then also for the full moon in February, we're going to be in South Egypt. We'll have dinner on the boat on the Nile in front of the Isis temple. So we'll also be celebrating the goddess there under the full moon. I feel really blessed and grateful to be able to take a group through this experience together. Yes, thank
That's
you.
such, oh, it's so, so good. And oh, I just love this that I had forgotten that it was chem and that's the root word of alchemy. And alchemy is like everything I've been about pretty much my whole life. I didn't even realize it till I started thinking about it more, but it's all about the alchemy and the alpha omega, the symbol, the snake biting its tail, and that is like the end and beginning point. And at that in between place, it's the in between where the alchemy takes place. So it's not here, it's not there. It's in that space between.
It's true. And let me show you something really quick because when I was in Egypt last March, I found this. I was in one of those beautiful temples, and I looked to the floor, and this was
Oh,
at my feet. So it's the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, and there is this eye, like,
at
and
the
this was
center.
at my the eye at the center. It's like revelation. Open your eyes because revelation is coming, and it's
Beautiful.
divine.
Oh, I
It's
love that. Oh my,
divine.
so amazing.
So
Yeah.
much magic happening. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
And, and and here's the thing. We need to really expect magic, invite magic, ask for magic, request that magic be a part of our life, and then accept it when it shows up because it will show up like it did after we had that last conversation. It was like, oh my gosh, the magic's there and the miracles that happen because uh, we just don't think we should ask for it, but we do need to ask. We need to request and ask, and then those things will come. So if this is something that aligns for you, whether you go to Egypt or not, or go to any sacred sites, you can still ask for magic to happen. And I have told this story a few times, but back in the late 80s, I think it was like 88, 89, I read Lynn Andrews' book, Medicine Woman, and my life I was totally miserable and wanted to leave. I didn't want to be here anymore, but I was the mother of three children at the time, had a fourth one later. And I was like, I can't go. I have to be here for them. But I was like, it was just such a rough time in my life. And I read this book and I was like, I want to live a magical life. And I made that declaration. And it wasn't, it was very soon after that, things started getting super magical in my life. So we need to ask for it, is what I'm saying. Just ask for magic. Ask for the magic to
Let me
happen.
show you the other piece I found in Egypt, and this is real.
Oh
I
my
think it's
goodness.
a label, but I found these two. First, this one, the Magic of Eye, and then the Ouroboros with the eye. I mean, I
Oh,
found this just in front of me in Egypt. So yes, we're in for magic lives. We ask and we shall receive, and that brings such bliss and joy into our lives, and that's what the world needs. Because the more of us that are resonating in this higher frequency, the more we contribute to the uplifting of the collective. So that's so important. And I'm so thankful, Kaylin, for all the inspiration I've been receiving from you for the last 12 years. It's actually a Jupiter cycle.
that's right.
Yeah,
Would be a Jupiter cycle. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. So, okay, well, I'm hoping this is inspiring people. Here we are. We're really in an alpha omega point pretty much every all the time, but this is like taken up onto a bigger scale. I mean, I thought about this after my mom died. It was like every breath I take, it's like the beginning, the end, the beginning, the end, the days, the beginning, the end. It's like we're in it all the time, but we just don't think about it that way. And now here we are at a massive Alpha Omega point 2025. And I just love how you brought that through. Thank you so much for that. And so, any last words you want to share?
well, it's been a pleasure to share these magical talks with you. And yeah, and regarding Egypt, I think we can leave the link for my website on the
It'll
description
be in
box.
yeah, that'll be in the show notes along with, I'll put a link to the video that t tells a little bit more of the story about my experience in Egypt
Mhm.
and that hopefully inspires people because
Yeah.
wow. And then if there's anything else you can send me, I'll put that in the show notes as well. So be sure to check out the show notes for more.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also about Portugal, there's a lot of connections here also with Atlantis that I've been exploring, and maybe we could save that for another
We
time.
can do
But
that. Yes, absolutely. We'll do that. And I mean, that journey we had in Portugal in 2017 was amazing. And so many, I mean, the the stones, the men hair stones, I think they are, or something like that. The dolmens, whatever. Oh, so good. Just so amazing. So yeah, highly recommend that. If you're going to Portugal, link up with Christina and she can, um,
yeah.
yeah, show you.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure for me to host private groups to sacred ancient sites in Portugal, south, center, and north of Portugal. There's really a lot to see. And yeah, and solstice blessings,
Yes,
everyone.
yes, and oh my gosh, here's to a magical and amazing, miraculous 2025 where we leave whatever this old crazy world has been and we the the ending of all of that and move into the beginning of do that alpha omega kind of thing.
Blessed be.
Blessed be. Bye, everybody.